it goes to me, for me is, we have night shift, all right? Are the people in the office okay? Did they evacuate safely? Was everybody out of the room? Then I start thinking about what I'm going to tell the client tomorrow. Should we bring people back? Um, then I start thinking about what the internet, it's as a remote uh, staff solution provider, the internet is the oxygen. Um, would the internet provide, would we have internet tomorrow? So there's a lot of things that, like came to my mind in that split second when I was swaying on the 16th floor. I've been, we've been always preparing for an earthquake in the office. We run simulation with emergency response team. How do we react when we have earthquake? And when it happened, everything flew out the window. And then when Richard mentioned about in his presentation about you need to have that not on your computer, but you need to have that in your like, yes, I do need that. But that's the thing, Richard. Like when there's calamities, there's a lot of stakeholders that has to work together. There's a compassion from the client. Yep. As an employer, our responsibility to make sure everyone is safe, not just if they are in the office, we have to make sure that they are also safe at their houses as well. So thank you, Richard, for that. I have one more question from how do we do with time? We have 30 minutes. This question is from the shy guy. Can someone who is less sociable or considered not so warm still be able to deliver good customer experience? How can they hit the mark while still being consistent with their personality? That's you and Brian. Yeah. You can unform it.
That's a very good question because not every customer experience provider is really an extrovert. Some of them are introverts, but they're just pulled out from that hat and have to wear something else just to be a service provider. I think training is very important, and training not only for technical skills but also soft skills. It's essential to put a positive mindset as well to that employee that once upon a time you were also a customer and how would you like to be treated or to be served that way or this way. So that gives you perspective. Another one is to instill that on your KPIs. If your KPI is very structured, then the training is also structured. The training should marry and mirror your KPI. Along the way, there should be pulse checks, could be weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. The support system on training is very important because when we track progress, we can also see which part is this person failing or let's not say failing, having some difficulties, then we see the progress. Because, like me, once upon a time when I moved from the hotel industry to BPO, I didn't know anything about clients. I was working with guests, and guests are vacationers, clients are business people. So I had to learn it from myself. So I think adaptability is also a soft skill, it's a life skill as well.
Thank you, Brian.
I love this question. Um, so the question was, how can someone who's less social or a little bit shy be able to deliver good, or can they deliver good customer service? Yes, you can. And you know why? Not every customer is extroverted and out there. You will be the best customer service person by being that supposedly introvert person because you are probably calm in your delivery. You're probably quite process driven. So when you have somebody who's in front of you that is losing their mind, being extroverted and matching losing their mind is not going to work. Being that slightly introverted person, a little bit shy, who's listening to everything first and then responding in the right way will win you that client. So, absolutely, a shy person or an introverted person can be successful in customer service. And I'm going to share with you me. You probably all think that I'm quite extroverted, out there, fun loving, action. I am. But guess what? I'm actually naturally a quiet person. If you invited me to a party, I'd sit in the corner of that couch and just observe everybody naturally. And then I'd probably fall asleep, just letting you know. However, my role and what I need to do in my business pushes me out there. So I am that extroverted person as required. However, I know when I'm talking to business clients, if they are quiet, I need to match my vibe. And so I am both a shy person and an extroverted person, and I have to match what the customer needs to make them feel safe and to create that customer experience that they're going to be like, that person understood me. So, no, absolutely shy guy, introverted people, you'll nail it with customer service.
Thank you, Lee. Richard, you.
I will continue that. Both are excellent answers.
Because like Richard, I think Richard is an ambivert. You can actually socialize, and you also
Like
sit
Dark
at the
Lord.
corner.
Yeah.
Um, going back to you, Brian, you mentioned about having the corporate, like your KPI, right? The KPI, like irrespective of what your personalities are, whether you're a social person or you're an introvert, you have to work to deliver, and your work is quite structured. You are given KPI, so irrespective of who you are, what you are, your KPI are the things that drives you in terms of what you need to achieve. And D, you mentioned about it's actually good if you have, like an introvert actually interacting with an extrovert, because the opposite attracts. And it gives you some balance in terms of, like if someone is losing their head, you go one person who goes calm and collected, and take this person into a much more structured train of thoughts. I can give you an example. If I have a different client, like a difficult client who is out there, who I sent? She. Yeah, so I go like, you take this one and you deal with him, and does it so well, and he managed to calm the client down, because if I speak to this client, I'm going, oh, and no one gets anything out of it. So I totally for in terms of like my perspective, right? Like, you don't have to uh, be someone that you are not. You just have to learn how to actually deal with different personalities. And that is quite technical, and you can learn that. There are a lot of materials out there on how to manage difficult people, how to actually get through difficult conversation. So it's something that we all can learn. We don't have to be someone we are. Um, we have 3 minutes to go. I don't get this to. I will choose. There's more, there's a lot more question here, but I'm going to choose uh, something a bit more topical. It's a hot topic here. Is this question from Ryan, our recruitment manager? How do you avoid the trap of using AI merely for cost cutting and deflection, ensuring it actively enhances and elevates the core customer experience? So I think if I rephrase this question is how do you avoid like how do you avoid the trap of using AI merely for cost cutting, but at the same time ensuring that we deliver good customer experience? I hope I get your question right. Am I? Okay. Yeah.
So, from a CX point of view, I would say, do we really need AI? And if yes, which part of the journey? We first need to understand from the feedback that we have gathered from the customers, members, clients, however you want to call them, what are the key drivers or pain points from those feedbacks? Is that service oriented? Is it something system oriented? Then that's when we decipher if we really need AI. Now, if it's service providers, because the labor is quite intensive, there are few people with so many requests, then we can somehow streamline AI to deliver and do the minor works so the main people can do the heavier tasks at hand. I think that's more streamlining, that's more lean in terms of like Six Sigma, terms of principles. In my company, we use AI, we call it Talia. So if there's a member who wants to inquire something from the website or in WhatsApp, Talia captures the sentiment of the member. When it gets too technical, then that's when we route it to a lifestyle manager. But before we use and launch Talia, we have to simulate it first if how far can it answer a human interaction question. So just to get back to the question of Ryan, I think we first need to answer our why and where is it needed and who are the needed people to do that for AI, just not to fall on the trap of AI, because I think AI is quite a hot topic now, controversial. Companies would like to use AI because it's like in, but it's somewhat expensive as well. It also represents your brand, and if you cannot utilize it properly, that would also uh, affect your brand reputation.
I agree with you, Brian. I think the world is actually now swept by AI. Every is the sexy, glamorous. If you don't use AI in the business, you are not in the crowd, kind of thing. But I think before we actually wants to use AI, it's important to actually understand your client needs. Does your client need someone to actually talk to a person? Then moving to AI, probably going to, you know, not going to do it. And you mentioned about, like the smarts in AI where it can actually read the sentiment. And those simple questions, those simple queries, they can be answered by AI. And the complex one, you still need the person. I'm going to actually conclude this session. I would like to thank you, Richard, Dee, and Brian, for your time here. And I think everyone learns a lot from you today. So thank you so much. Thank you, speakers Brian, D, and Richard, for answering those questions, and also to our, attendees for submitting such, very mind generating, questions. I wish we could, answer some more, but don't worry, we'll have another plenary debrief later again. And so I would want to remind everyone to please continue to submit your questions as we go on with, the
the conference today. So we still have a few more speakers. And also, it's very interesting that some of you guys have, it's really nice to see such perspective. Like, for example, for Sir Ryan's question, he was asking about AI. I know we've already talked about that in the last conference, but today that has been brought up because our our theme is centered on people and how do we make sure that we're not replacing the people, but we're making advantage of AI instead, and how to elevate our business through AI. Okay, so without further ado, let us continue with the rest of the presentation. So for the third plenary speaker, they have a very interesting background because he has literally built success from the ground up. He is a registered SAN civil engineer with a PMP certification from the Project Management Institute, specializing in construction, engineering, and project management. With 3 decades of experience in the construction industry, he has successfully led and contributed to a diverse portfolio of projects, including condominiums, commercial buildings, industrial facilities, retail complexes, hotels, amusement parks, golf courses, resorts, sound studios, high-end residential developments, and various institutional structures. Amazing. He is the Cebu chapter head at Project Management Institute. Please help me welcome Michael Manlangit.
Thank you for that generous catch. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm honored to be invited here as part of PSA Solutions Alexandria Accord for this year. And I will be delighted to share with you my insights, my customer experience, principles in my field, which is construction. As a construction manager for 3 decades, I have witnessed blueprints turned into plans, transformed to buildings. However, I have come to realize that successful project encompasses more than timely budget compliant completion. As what Richard mentioned a while ago, you should have a BCP, business continuity plan. I just discovered that I have one. 3 weeks ago, a powerful earthquake magnitude of 6.9 struck Cebu. Despite having hand over the project, my clients were not expecting me to call them immediately after the event just to express my concern and assess the condition of their buildings. In my opinion, this proactive approach ensured a positive long-term customer experience. So I would like to invite you to join me this afternoon for my presentation, Beyond Completion, How Project Management Shapes Customer Experience. True success is measured by the value we deliver to our customer. Even more profoundly, I learned that successful projects cannot live entire community. When we manage project, the customer's best interests and long-term impact is in my mind, and the results resonate far beyond the contract. So today, I would like to share insights from the construction world that you can use also in your own field and demonstrate how we can shift our focus from mere delivery to true customer delight to redefine what to call project success. So I will go through with why customer experience matters in projects, and then I will redefine what is project success, and then I will show you how to bridge project management with CX, and then I will dwell more on my case study. I would like to share to you an actual project, which I think is very important to me because it's unique, and then I will end with a conclusion call to action. So why CX matters in projects? It's a new battleground because our customers are demanding. Their demands are getting complicated. So if you have an unhappy customer, then you won't have loyalty. You will reduce your revenues. But a happy customer will be loyal and they will get you again for the next project. And of course, bring you revenue. With this, embedding CX in our core means aligning every project with what customers want and value. This turns transformation into opportunities to increase satisfaction, retention, and growth. So this is the famous iron triangle for project management. If you are familiar with PN, traditionally as project managers, we are obsessed over the iron triangle. We have to make sure that we have to deliver the projects on time, within scope, and within budget. But through time and experience, ex- I realized that the project isn't truly successful until the customer is satisfied. In other words, even if my KPIs are green, an unhappy customer means a project failure. So instead of asking, did I hit our targets? I should ask, did I solve the customer's problem and improve their experience? Thus, customer experience became the fourth dimension of the strain triangle. So how do we reach project management with CX? Of course, you start project and planning. Planning should be customer centric. You have to understand what are their needs, and we have to incorporate this from the beginning. So planning must be customer centric. Then before we execute any project, we have to journey our clients, customers, and map the project scope to make sure that they understood any complexities in the project. Since construction is highly technical, we explain at the customer's level, ensuring understanding and buy-in. So of course, we have to embed CX with the project team to make sure that everybody's aligned by training all team members on empathy and customer focused thinking. So there are modern management methodologies like Agile, which offer built-in ways to keep project customer centric. This framework improve customer throughout development. And lastly, the voice of the customer matters at every stage. Don't wait until delivery to hear the customer's voice, or else you get surprises. The key is to capture and act on their feedback early. By doing so, you catch misalignment sooner. And regularly, we ask the customers, are we delivering what you expected? What can we improve? And then adapt accordingly. So where or how is CX applied in the project life cycle? We apply CX throughout in every phase project life cycle, from initiating, planning, execution, monitoring, and controlling, and until posting. To provide you a more concrete example in CX application in action, I would like to share with you a completed project of mine that was completed last year, and it is with the Archdiocese and Shrine of San Roque. It's a church project. This is a renovation project of the Archdiocese and Shrine of San Roque Church. It is a unique project for me because compared to my usual commercial projects, it focuses on the needs of and requirements of the parish and parishioners who are the end users of this project. It is located in Mambaling, Cebu City. If you are familiar with the flyover, Mambaling, that's where the church is. It is a two-story reinforced concrete building with a total floor area of 1,422 square meters. The original structure was built in 2003, and we started renovation during COVID 2021. During the initiation phase, we meet the pastoral council who represents the parish, the parish priest, architect. Here we brainstorm about the requirements and wish list. These are the list of challenges that they were facing. Low participation among parishioners, church locations not visible, church worship areas in the second floor difficult for elderly. The interior of the worship area is uncomfortable due to heat, limited natural light, inadequate ventilation. The ambience of the interior is dim, lacks natural light, attendance of young parishioners of masses is declining, and the office is located at the entrance gate, which poses safety concerns. So with this, we summarize everything and present this to our designers. And this is a summary that we gave it to designers for the reference. Number one, we told the designer to design, number one, a sacred and welcoming atmosphere, global simplicity, a holy place where individuals of God and worship take sacramental opportunities, comfortable and inviting ambience, inclusivity of individuals living with disabilities and the elderly, distinctive design that draws visitors to church from the outside room and features a prominent marker. So the architect during the planning interprets the customer's requirement and we make sure that this design got approval from the customers. So we have presented several iterations until finally the design was approved. So what the architect did is they have a white shades and for the interior colors to enhance the church, they added 3 to 4 meters high. Then to increase natural light ventilation, they added more doors opening. Then they replaced the faded stained glass with clear operable glass windows. and then liturgical symbols that are easily understandable by the young. We also improve the slope of the ramp that can be friendly for the elderly and the people with disabilities. And we added more exit stairs for safety during emergency. And then we relocate the office to be more functional and welcoming at the far end of the ground floor parking area. During the execution, we make sure that our team, understood the requirements of the customer, especially when there are operation changes. And then during monitoring and controlling, we make sure that the customers are being will have a walkthrough in every milestone of the project. Then finally, we conclude the project with the customer's approval and acceptance. Construction team is delighted with the successful completion of the project. After a year, the operations are fall back parishioners, especially the pastoral team, and got their feedback. It was impressive feedback because the increased number of parishioners attending mass. In fact, they added more masses during Sundays from 4 to 6. And then the youth are now more engaging. And there are a lot of volunteers now working for the church for their spiritual, physical, and social needs for the parishioners and the wider community. These ministries encompasses like the social action, worship service, music, altar servers, devotion, prayer warriors, lectors, psalmists, lectors, lay ministers, and support for street children. The church is now visible from the main road, so more pilgrims are visiting the shrine. Finally, the church has been recognized as a Cebu's shrine rather than regular church. Allow me to share to you a 5-minute video presentation that captures the project execution until the integration. Do you want to see some video?
Yes.
Dako kayong gasa sa Barangay Mambaling, ang parokya ni San Roque. Niadtong Agosto 2008, gideklara na kami nga wadamha, isip sa ka-shrine ni Anhing Ricardo J. Cardinal Vidal. We are called to be a true missionary outpost by means of our spirit of welcome, a spirit of silence and prayerfulness that renews the pilgrims, the celebration of the Eucharist and of reconciliation, and of our service to the poor. We needed to live up to our mission as a shrine by means of renovating our structures and our building, as well as renovating the interior spaces of the minds and hearts of people and of our social fabric as a community. As Pope Francis says, God dares us to create something new.
When Father Melo gave us the design brief, we immediately met with a design team headed by architects Lendl and Liesel Gold to come up with a concept.
It was a blessing to be part of this community project in transforming the building. The final
Dako kayong gasa sa Barangay Mambaling ang parokya ni San Roque. Niadtong Agosto 2008, gideklara na kami nga wadamha nga isip usa ka shrine ni anhing Ricardo J. Cardinal Vidal. We are called to be a true missionary outpost by means of our spirit of welcome, a spirit of silence and prayerfulness that renews the pilgrims, the celebration of the Eucharist and of reconciliation, and of our service to the poor. We needed to live up to our mission as a shrine by means of renovating our structures and our building, as well as renovating the interior spaces of the minds and hearts of people and of our social fabric as a community. As Pope Francis says, God dares us to create something new.
When Father Melo gave us the design brief, we immediately met with the design team headed by architects Lendl and Liselgo to come up with a conceptualization plan and design. It was a blessing to be part of this community project in transforming the building. The final design came up with more spaces, accessibility, natural light and air ventilation.
The renovation project has 5 phases. The first phase, mainly the exterior and the facade that is 10 feet higher, was blessed last August 2022. Right now, our teams are working day in, day out to finish phase 2, which is the sanctuary and the nave.
Conclusion and call to action. Let us celebrate every project through CX. Let us listen, empathize, adapt, and inspire and lead with customer first mindset. Allow me to borrow the quote from Winston Churchill. Reshape our buildings, and afterwards reshape us. In project management, we can think of this way. Reshape our projects, and afterwards reshape our customer relationship and communities' reputations. I'm proud to share that all my clients, after I contacted the earthquake last September 30, reported that their buildings are safe and sound. I offered a visit to ensure nothing has affected them during that strong earthquake. So when managing a project with a customer first mindset, we prioritize value, experience, and long-term success, not just completing the job. We improve the environment and the lives of everyone who uses our creation. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Successful projects can uplift entire communities, and that's what Mr. Michael has shown us today. And what a beautiful project as well, or a shrine that he has, helped led and also built. And I also saw on the video that he is a volunteer project manager. So really wonderful. Then yes, please give him another round of applause. And we have heard different stories or different perspectives. Again, earlier we heard from someone from hotel sector, and then then eventually to outsourcing. And then Sir Richard talked about business continuity. And now we hear or heard from Sir Michael about construction. And this time, he also showed us that we can empower people. And in his example, he was able to empower people through construction and also, um, you know, empower people spiritually by leading that project. And so, are we learning so far with all those perspectives? Do you think you have learned?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Because we're still, halfway through the conference. And again, as you guys have responded. We are learning a lot. And guess what? Dili pa party. We still have two more speakers to hear from. And so for our next plenary speaker is she is a powerhouse in the field of human resources and organizational development. She has close to 2 decades of progressive leadership in human resources, organizational development, and business consulting. Before joining this motor, she served as a director of the training, consulting, and research department at People Dynamics Incorporated, where she spearheaded client focused initiatives in business development, organizational transformation, and talent management. She also contributed to shaping the HR and talent development profession in the Philippines as a vice president for external affairs at the Philippine Society for Talent Development. Her background includes senior HR leadership roles across industries and consulting engagements that build expertise in project management, client relations, and workforce development. She is the AVP Human Resources at Motor Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Abigail Dongo.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Are you able to hear me? There, thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Thank you for the introduction. This afternoon, I am so amazed at all of the stories that the speakers share this afternoon. We're learning a lot, right? Amazing. I can still recall many, many years ago when I had my very first job interview. I walked into this Japanese manufacturing firm in Mactan, in MEPS. And I came in around 7:50, so I was a little relieved. Wow, I'm 10 minutes early for my interview schedule. I was surprised because when I walked in, it was so quiet. I can hear my own footsteps. When I open the door, I can hear the reverberation in the room. So it was a surprise that when the executive assistant of the one who would interview me brought me in, I was surprised that people were already in their cubicles. And everyone was so quiet. So in summary, I wasn't tired. Maybe I'm too noisy. Couple of years after, I was able to do a consulting project for a government agency. So in this government agency, I walked in around 8 o'clock. The TV was blaring. They were watching the news that morning. I saw an employee with his feet up on the desk, reading a newspaper. Everyone was so noisy, so happy, and they were taking their breakfast at 8. Two contexts, two different situations, different behaviors of employees. Over my 20 years of exposure, I have always been curious about culture. In fact, I am a lifelong learner of culture. I'm originally from Tacloban City, that's in Leyte. We have more calamities there than here. So we could say that we are relatively resilient. So I work in Ormoc City. So I moved to another area. I got an opportunity to work in Manila, and then I moved here because my husband is a Cebuano. So moving around, I have recognized that truly culture is something that's very important when you're relating with customers, you're relating with clients, particularly if you'd like to make a memorable experience. Hopefully, the right kind of memorable experience, right? In my discipline in OD, we were taught that we should be using framework when we are talking about concepts. So that's it. It's easier for you to understand. Culture is a very broad concept, right? Do you agree? But we all experience culture. One of the views that's commonly used in describing culture is called the iceberg model. Iceberg because just like an iceberg, a lot of it can be seen, maybe the uniform, decorations, the website, the slogans, the posters, right? These are the visible parts of culture. But below the iceberg, there's actually so much more beliefs, values, practices, things that people do when no one is watching. They also say that in the iceberg model of looking at culture, they consider culture as static. In fact, one of my professors in OD, when we asked him, how do you change culture, Prof? What's the fastest way to change culture, Prof? So our dear professor said, that's very simple. You want it quick, right? Call everyone in a town hall meeting, bomb the area. So everybody is gone. So that's how you now install a new culture. Of course, he was kidding, right? He wasn't really advocating for violence, but his saying is it's quite difficult to change culture, right? You may change the leader, but there are people there who would continue the practice, right? You could change people, but then there are the firm structures which actually tend to propagate that culture then again. But right now, because jobs have evolved, right? So they say that the iceberg model of looking at culture is now considered obsolete, right? So they are saying that the way to look at culture now is through a lily pond model. Are you familiar with the lily pond? No? So lily pond, as in it's a lake, it could be a lake, it could be any ecosystem. In an ecosystem, everybody benefits from each other, right? They coexist. In fact, it's very common in a lily pond that if a certain snail gets integrated and embedded into the ecosystem, it could kill all of the life forms. So the lily pond model is saying, do not just allow accident to shape culture. You need to take care of culture so that it flourishes in the right way, right? So the lily pond system is saying that culture is growing, evolving, and you should really be active in trying to hone and taking care of culture. Why does it matter in customer service? In customer experience, we know that our employees basically shape much of customer experience. We recognize that now work has expanded. In fact, Work isn't something that you do in a certain location. You don't really go to work now, but you get work done anywhere. In fact, at the core of being earthquake proof, typhoon proof, or pandemic proof, you should be able to have systems that would allow you to work anywhere, right? It's your basic BCP or your business continuity plan, right? That you can work and continue service anywhere. So it's embedded in the culture that hopefully, even if they are working from home or from Boracay, they have shared norms, right? They know what's expected of them, right? Another reason is in terms of culture building, we now know that job is no longer what they say in Filipino, trabaho lang, walang personalan. No, that's what they used to say several years ago. Trabaho lang, walang personalan. Or you have to separate work from personal life. Nowadays, no. That's no longer acceptable, particularly if you have Gen Zs in your workforce, right? Before, among millennials, we used to say we need work-life balance. But now they say you can't say work-life balance. It's now work-life integration. Work-life integration as in you come to work in order to live, right? Meaning work is now something or somewhere where you become more meaningful. You live your life to the fullest. You get to exercise your creativity, innovation, and it gives meaning and fulfillment to your life. Additionally, in terms of work, it's now no longer about a job description. Have you heard of the term job shaping? It's something that is slowly creeping in to our way of doing work, wherein people now do not just work hard, they'd like to work smart. I'm amazed about working with Gen Zs because they don't really say, I don't know how to do that. They would usually say, let's learn how to do that. And with ChatGPT, they can do anything, essentially anything, and thus shaping the way that work is being done. So all the more that culture has to be important because as jobs evolve, the values, the beliefs has to be in place in order to sustain that standard of customer experience. So culture, it helps, number one, in setting the norms so that even if we cannot possibly micromanage, because Gen Zs don't like that. They don't like micromanagement, right? So when you have your culture embedded, it's a way for you to be able to make sure that they understand the norms, that it becomes a normal for doing things, that it's the behind acceptable behavior. Number two, it lays out the non-negotiables so that you no longer have to explain. You don't have to do all of the decision making, right? Number three, it makes sure that everyone knows the expectations. Like when I used to work for Profiles Asia Pacific, we all know that client satisfaction is a priority. That's why if it's a client call, we will drop everything. Now, if our CEO calls, we can say, Sir, can I call you tomorrow? I'm a little busy here. We have a deadline. But that's acceptable. It's acceptable because it has become the shared norm. Everybody understands that this is the normal. Everybody understands that this is the expectation. Lastly, culture also helps by serving as the playbook. One of the things that I loved about working for Profiles Asia Pacific, is that integrity isn't just a core value in our posters, but it's really something that is being practiced. One time, a BIR inspector dropped by the office. And then, because that time there was, we were missing certain records, certain documents. So some people were saying, why don't we just pay? Why don't we just pay immediately? But our CEO was saying, no, our value is integrity, right? We don't pay. We don't take part in corruption. So it became a playbook that no, we will never do anything that's against integrity as a core value. So that's how powerful culture is. And now, moving forward, it becomes a story that's so powerful that anyone who works in the organization, they know that this is how things are being done in the organization. Four C's when you'd like to embed customer experience. Number one, first C, culture branding initiative. One of the practices that we do in Profiles Asia Pacific is that every year we sit down with our teams and then we talk about what are the things that we would like to do better so that we can work together more collaboratively. We can make the workplace happier and we can avoid unnecessary conflict in our teams. And then we write it down in meta cards. Later on, of course, that evolved into Canva whiteboards. And then we consolidate it, of course, using ChatGPT because you no longer manually consolidate things right now. And then we place it into posters. So every month, we go back to those norms. How are we now in terms of these norms? How are we now in terms of these agreements? It's a beautiful exercise. You know why? Because we leaders, we are no longer pressured to be the one who's the police. It's actually the team now calling out each other. Oh, look, rule number 3, you violated the agreement that we have to respond every other 2 hours to our messages. So it's beautiful because the norms are shared and it comes from our very own teammates. So there's a sense of ownership. It's not forced on them. It's something that came from them. So culture branding initiatives can be as simple as that. It doesn't really mean that you will hire expensive consultants, right? It doesn't mean that you have to do a lot of expensive programs. Simple things like agreeing on norms, having clear ground rules about how things are being done, creating ownership and accountability by giving a voice for every member in the team. And lastly, it's a tool to avoid unhealthy conflicts because everybody knows what the client expectation is. Everybody knows how you would like the team to support each other. Next is core values. So first C is culture. Second C is core values. It helps in terms of embedding customer experience to culture. If there's core values in culturation projects, just to cite some specific examples, leadership development program is something that we uh, commonly invest in when it comes to core values in culturation programs. We know through role modeling that action speaks louder than words. For example, you might frequently say, we have a safe space here. But then, if a member brings a bad news to the leader and then the leader quickly loses his temper, so of course it creates the message, no, it's not really a safe space. Action speaks louder than your words, right? So making sure that our leaders really practice what they preach is very critical if we wish to promote certain core values in the organization. Additionally, recognition. In the Philippine culture, it's easier for us to give negative feedback or reprimanding people. It's not so natural in the Filipino culture to praise and to recognize. But we need to make sure and we need to be reminded that whatever gets recognized gets reinforced. For example, in Profiles Asia Pacific, we don't just give commissions for new business. We give higher commissions for repeat business, telling our employees that retaining customers is much more important than having more new customers, which is more costly, right? Third C, capability. We know for a fact that you cannot please customers just by having kind, smiling, beautiful personnel and employees, right? We recognize that it's very important that our organizations are capable. What's the capability? Capability is basically something that an organization does exceptionally well. Just like these famous brands, right? When we talk about Apple, what comes to mind? Innovation, right? When we see the logo of McDonald's, we're so hungry. We expect speed, right? Because it's a fast food, right? When we see the brand of Starbucks, we know that's quality, consistent coffee. So that's capability. And customers, they love consistency and reliability, right? We need to recognize as well that for C, it's very important for us to know and recognize that capabilities are built on competencies of employees, right? For example, if your customers interact with certain employees and they don't get the right answers, that's going to make them unhappy, right? So we know that capability is built on the foundation of competencies as well. So four C's would be culture, core values, capability, and competencies. If capability is something that the organization does exceptionally well, competency is something that an employee needs to have in order to succeed in their respective roles. One of the things that we don't realize is that a lot of the attributes that make us successful in our jobs are difficult to train, are difficult to actually build from within. Examples would include, for example, being agreeable. Agreeableness is one, right? That's why, if you can recall from people you used to work with, some people they are so agreeable, some people they are so difficult to work with because it's actually an innate trait. Some people were born with more cells, mirror cells, synapses, wherein emotional intelligence is second nature to them. Some people, they still need to learn or they have to be willing to learn. So that's why competency is truly very important. Customers, they expect knowledgeable, skilled, and competent support. Some competency development programs that you can invest on if you'd like to embed competency as a culture building activity. Number one, of course, would be formal education. For example, in Profiles Asia Pacific, all managers are encouraged to take at least a master's degree or a PhD if they would like to. In Profiles Asia Pacific, if you're taking up further studies, there's 1 day paid study leave per week. So people are really encouraged to take further studies. Additionally, managers are trained and certified in coaching so that they can be capable in terms of guiding and mentoring people in their respective teams. So competency development is embedded into customer experience because it makes sure that your people truly supports the capability that you're building on as an organization. Key takeaways that I'd like you to take from this particular talk. Number one, we need to make sure that customer experience and customer orientation is a day-to-day practice, that it's really embedded into culture. Number two, we need to make sure that people understands what's really the compass for decision making. What are the non-negotiables when it comes to dealing, interacting, and doing work? Next, just as I said earlier, smiles, being kind, being pleasant is not enough. Organizations need to have the capability to actually deliver reliable, continuous service in the organization. And number four, companies are merely a group of people trying to do things and giving value to its clientele and to its customer and market segment. So we need to invest on developing the competencies of our people. Thank you so much, Alexandria Accord, and everyone for giving time for me.
Culture, core values, capability, and competencies. Thank you so much, Ms. Abigail, for the wonderful presentation. And also earlier we talked about, or Dee talked about personal branding, and then she also now Miss Abigail talked about culture branding as well, which is a really good insight and another perspective in embedding all of that in customer experience. Now, also, guys, I would like you to again remind everyone to please submit questions if you guys have any, comments or anything that you got out from, the speakers earlier. Please feel free to scan the QR code and submit your questions. Okay, now for our final plenary speaker. He will be sharing a different perspective on customer experience, this time through the lens of the academe. He is an educator with more than 15 years of leadership and teaching experience across the Philippines, China, Egypt, and the United States. He has built a career advancing education through academic leadership, consulting, and international school administration. At Southwestern University, SIGMA, he is shaping a vision that prepares students to excel in business analytics, leverage technology for strategy, lead with ethics and empathy, think globally with cultural sensitivity, and collaborate effectively. His work emphasizes aligning curriculum with industry needs through partnerships that ensure graduates are workforce ready and future focused. He is the Dean in Business Administration at FINMA. Ladies and gentlemen, our fifth plenary speaker, Steve Spencer.
Is there a video? Oh, is that on? Hello, hello. I think I had a video first. Please. Thank you. Maybe.
comment they have great service or bad service if they got what they want or didn't get what they want, right? That's not true. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm on a business trip and my work is done early and I want to go home to my family. I check the website, I see that there's flights available, the earlier flights, and let's call it a day early. And so I call the airline and I say, hey, I'm done early. I'd really love to get home to my family. I see that you've got availability in the earlier flight. Can I get on that flight? And the agent says, I'm sorry, you have the wrong class of ticket. I can't change your flight. I'm happy to pay a fee. I'm happy to pay whatever it is. Please, can I get on that flight? I'm sorry, sir. I told you you have the wrong class of you have the wrong class. I can't book you. You have the wrong status flight. There's nothing I can do. The computer won't let me do it. Okay. I now hate that airline. Right. Okay. Let's replay that. Okay. Same scenario. Hi, done early. Love to go home. I see you have availability. Can I get on that flight? Sir, I want to get you home to your family. Here's the problem. Your ticket is the wrong class. And so the computer won't let me see what I can do. I really want to get you home to your family. Click, 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 click. That didn't work. Click, 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 click. That didn't work. Sir, let me talk to my supervisor. I'm determined to get you home to your family. Go away, come back. Sir, I told my supervisor we tried like 6 different things. There's nothing I can do. I am so sorry. I just cannot get you on that early flight. Don't worry. Thank you for trying. I now love that airline, even though I didn't get what I want. And that's what it feels like when someone cares. It doesn't mean we always get what we want, but what we get is somebody who understands and cares about what we're trying to accomplish. That's considered good service.
I wanted to start with that video because I think that really explains a lot about what we're here for. The first example that was used was the person that kind of academia has been raising for a long time. Compliant, they do what they're supposed to do and so on and so forth, but a lot of times they lack empathy. The thing that we're trying to look at doing going forward, and by the way, the way that our speakers before me, the way that you guys so amazingly integrated literally the stuff, I mean, it just works so well together that it's just awesome because it feels like almost like half the things I'm going to talk about, it's based off of the things that you guys were talking about first. Okay. The second person, okay, is the person we're trying to get at in academia. We're trying to raise somebody, okay, who thinks of others first. So when I was given this opportunity by Joy reached out to me and she said, would you like to talk about it? I said, that sounds awesome. Because one of the things is that probably the best generation to become customer centric is Gen Z. Because Gen Z feels a lot differently than the millennials and also the Gen X. So therefore, I entitled it Building Customer-Centric Futures, How Business Education Can Shape Tomorrow's Customer Experience Leaders. So first off, I did notice this when I was looking at all the pictures. I do look a lot, I'm a lot more joyful. My picture here this is my American football picture, in the sense that American football, okay, for those of you guys that are not familiar with that, we do not smile. As a matter of fact, we criticize the person that does smile. We basically make fun of them until the entire next season, okay? So right there, I need to start getting a picture that shows me, the like that, the smiling and stuff like that. But with that being said, as was mentioned, I am the new dean at Southwestern University. I am definitely not your average dean. I have not been in academia a long time. I have been in education a long time. I have worked in many different countries, but I am not your typical dean. I wanted to transfer from the idea of being into K through 12 education. And so what I did was I took a leap of faith and I went to AIM, the Asian Institute of Management up in Manila. And I took an MBA with a bunch of, by the way, Gen Zs, okay, who challenged me, pushed me, but at the same time, I was also realized that I could actually teach them too. And so thinking about that and trying to think about, the things I needed to talk about today, I was given a list of about 3 ideas I'm going to try to hit with you. Okay. The first one is this: how can business education adapt to prepare students for a customer-centric economy? So the first one is the fact that we need to embed customer experience throughout academia. In the past, customer experience normally got in through sales and marketing, customer service. But if you were finance, and by the way, I think we already talked about this, they didn't care. Okay, usually. Okay, if you're dealing with operations, they do their thing. Okay, if you dealt with HR, they did their thing. Okay. The idea, though, is that, as the example here, redesigning logistics to help basically minimize time and maximize quality. If you do that, that then gets to the customer. The customer's happy with your organization. You end up actually then gaining customers that actually want to work with you. Okay. So the first thing is trying to embed it. Everything from HR, by the way, IT, I agree with that too. Everything, it needs to be embedded in. Second one, using real data and also relevant case studies. One of the biggest things, or the biggest problems right now that exists in business education is that a lot of times the case studies are dated. They're not up to date, so therefore they do not always necessarily deal with the current issues that people are dealing with. Now, if it's like straight up marketing, 4Ps, finance, accounting, stuff like that, no problem. But if it's things that especially are becoming more relevant, it takes them a while. Not only does it take them a while, but when they write them, you're usually writing about something that happened like 4 years ago. Okay. Real data is the other issue also. We'll get to this actually is also a challenge. Everybody right now is so protective of their data. Totally understand. But if we're trying to really help bridge this gap, then we need to find ways to kind of work where we can actually work with data with customers so we can really see and better yet, the students can actually see what's kind of going on. Oh, my bad. Should have gone that way. Introducing AI and also in regards to personalization. Okay. Into the curriculum. AI, obviously, as we've already talked about, you heard from many of the other speakers, okay, is not going to go away. Okay. How can we get our students to maximize AI to help them actually when it comes to work? So in this case, predicting turnover rate among hospitality staff. I've had a chance to talk to people in the hospitality industry, and one of the biggest concerns they have is whenever they hear the phrase, a cruise ship's HR is coming to town. As soon as they hear that, they're very, very scared because they think a lot of their people are going to be peeled off. And so the idea then is that if they can start being more predictive of different things like this, then maybe they can start training people so that therefore in turn, these people are likely going to go away. Okay, we understand OFW is a very common thing here. But if you can actually predict it, you can train those people up that will take the place of the people that leave, and everything still works well. But you have to be able to start trying to put those parameters and those metrics actually into your system so that you can better do that. But last but not least, of course, continue to focus on ethics, inclusion, and sustainability. Now, this sustainability, though, is a little bit different. This is the sustainability of making sure it works, the continuation, the adaptability, and things like that. We're trying to get students to actually learn how to create systems and train them to create systems, but to make that it's not the systems from when I was younger, of which they made one system and then they existed for like 30 years. Okay, it's systems that are agile, systems that can actually adapt. So that was basically the first part of that I was asked to. The second question I was kind of driven to was, hold on, why is it not going? Hello? What's happening? Anyone? How about this? Can someone just get me to the next slide? Because right now, there we go. Okay, the second one was the role of academia in bridging theory and practice. Okay, and again, like I said, it's funny because as I keep on literally talking about this stuff, I feel like I can literally almost basically go through each other person's presentation and say, hey, I just saw that. Okay, first one, translate theory into cases and framework. Okay, first thing I saw, customer journey, first one that was mentioned. Okay, in academia, what we try to do is we try to take information and try to create frameworks. Okay, many of you are probably familiar with things like SWOT analysis. Okay, Porter's 5 forces. These are things that were basically looked at in academia, and then they eventually figured out how to make them actually put them together. Okay, that's what academia can do. Okay. Part of that could be because we have a lot of time sitting around and just thinking about stuff. Okay. Granted, not always the best thing, but hey, I'm fessing up to it right now. Okay. Second one, design industry guided projects or capstones. Again, the practicality of what actually happens in the industry is the best tool that academia could ever have. The thing is, though, is we need to go to industry, and notice I said we need to go to industry first, and I'll get to that why I'm saying we. But then the industry, though, needs to then be able to reciprocate. Okay, because what sometimes happens is that there are a few people that from academia go to industry, but then the industry kind of goes, okay, when you fix it, you let us know. The problem is that it's kind of hard for academia to work that way, and I'll kind of explain that here, especially when it comes to financial constraints. Okay, so the example, my bad, sorry about that. Guided projects, capstones, trying to get industry to come in, create projects. One of the things I was talking to my program head when I was thinking about this was I would love to have a time where I could have somebody come in, they could have a project that they're currently right now trying to deal with. They would have to obviously, clean it up, make sure the data is right, the way it is, and so on and so forth. But they clean up the project and they basically lay it out to my students. Then my students, about 2 weeks later, will create an output and they will try to explain not only what the analysis of the problem is, but how they think they would solve it. Those things happen a lot better with real world, real time things, such as projects and capstones. Number 3, maybe. There it is. Incorporate customer service or customer experience into, and again, I kept on hearing the word embed, right? Embed, okay, into what we're dealing with, but then also in regards to the rubrics, okay? So we have the idea of the outcomes themselves, okay? So the outcomes are like, what the students need to learn and so on and so forth. The rubrics that are like things like projects, defenses. So they have this idea of what they actually need to to work on then, okay? Last but not least, I think, there it is. Integrate real-time use cases, and this kind of again touches on that example I was saying. Okay, is the idea of trying to have these use cases that are real life. Okay, I love case studies when I was in my MBA. Okay, the problem was I literally read case studies that actually existed when I was a kid. Okay, I hate to tell you that, but guess what? If it's when I was a kid, then the people I was with have no flipping idea what the heck they were even talking about. They were like going like, huh? I'm like, oh yeah. Blockbuster was really cool back in the day. I promise. Okay. Yes. No. Seriously, VHS was where it was at. Okay. What? Okay. So with that being said, we then go. Can you go ahead and go to the third one too? Apparently, don't exactly know how to get to my next slide. Oh well. All right. Here we go. So, last of the 3 things I was asked to talk about today. How can universities and industries collaborate to build, a better future-ready, customer-focused talent? Which, by the way, is kind of what we're here for, especially when it comes to academia. Okay, the very first one is to co-create curriculum. I'm a big believer in the fact that curriculum with industry expertise is curriculum that will actually not only change academia, will actually change students, but will also help you guys a lot more. Modules are basically the muscle and the bones of a curriculum. And then last but not least, micro-credentials. I'm sure that's become kind of a buzzword now, right? Micro-credentials are the patches of the areas that maybe we don't actually have a really good answer for yet, but they can help us if we actually prepare them, okay? Number 2, OJT and internships. The reason why, or part of the reason why, I'm here with you right now today is because I actually reached out through LinkedIn to Joy and to Zana, asking them whether or not I could send some students here for OJT for 2 reasons. Number 1 is the fact that I want them to be trained well. And number 2, obviously, is the fact that if they are trained well and they also have a really cool thing to put on their resume, it's a very, very good start to their career. Okay. Faculty immersion. When I think about faculty, okay, a lot of the faculty in academia, okay, have been in academia a long time. They think they know, because I have talked to some of them, and occasionally I question a little bit. They think they know what you guys need. That's where I think the reason why I think that it's more of we should come to you and talk to you to find out what you guys need. But what immersion does is immersion allows the faculty to then have really good authority that when they're teaching students, they can actually then say, hey, I know that this works in marketing. I know this works in operations. I know this works in this. Why? Because I saw it in practice. But a lot of times in academia, what happens is we actually get kind of a little bit, past the time and everything, or we kind of get so far into our little insular bubble called academia that we forget to talk to people outside. The people like yourselves that actually have to deal with, well, as we were talking about customers and so on and so forth. Okay. My customers are between the ages of 18 to 22. Okay. Granted, maybe occasionally 23 and 24. Okay. So my customers are a lot different than you guys. Okay. But with that being said, the very last one is this. And by the way, this last one, without trying to sound like I'm trying to recruit people, y'all did read that, right? Okay, good. Okay, just trying to give a little time. Let's set that right there. Okay. But on a truthful note, though, students will learn more from industry practitioners than somebody who actually literally can basically figure out a module. Heck, you know what? I could read a finance book for 44 days. Okay. Read the exact same thing over and over again. If I don't actually have the practical experience in finance, it's always going to be better. Okay. It's always going to be better. So it's one of those things that I think the more we bring those people actually into the academe, the better we are also. However, that also means that we need to find people who are willing to do it. So it kind of goes both ways. And I think we were talking about that earlier today, right? Going both ways. Okay. All right. Number 3, I think this kind of where we touched on a little bit, sponsored research consulting projects. When I was at AIM, one of the coolest things we had, action consulting project. I got you. 3 minutes, right? Right? 3 minutes? Yeah. Action consulting project. Okay. I feel like I should get at least like 30 seconds because my slides don't basically switch the whole time, but it's okay. All right. But so action consulting project. The cool thing about that is that AIM actually reached out to industry, found projects, blinded them, so we couldn't tell who they were. We had to choose which one we wanted, but then we actually got to work with industry partners. You realize how impactful that would be. By the way, if it was not necessarily MBA people, but let's say undergrads, okay? And just in case you don't know, a lot of my students from Southwestern are students that most likely have never actually interacted with industry, okay? So the idea of them being able to work with, let's say, for example, like, a BSA, let's say a New Star or something like that. Holy cow, okay? Last but not least, kind of having customer, experiences, almost kind of like a little bit like this, but having more students involved. Maybe you have some speakers talk about customer experience and so on and so forth. Okay. You got to move along. Next slide, please. Because I already know that it's not going to work there and I'm already on red. Actually, what I'll do is this. I'm going to do this for the sake of time. Okay. Here we are. Because then you can read them while I'm talking really quick. Okay. So with that being said, 19, that's not bad. Okay. First one is this, data confidentiality. As I think I touched on this before, that's probably one of the biggest issues right now. At the same time, though, I think with like things like regulation, with like MOAs and stuff like that, those things can be addressed. It just needs to have some communication on how to kind of best fix them. Number 2, timeline mismatches. Okay. You guys are in industry. You guys do not have term breaks. You do not have finals. You do not have a project. You do not have but our students do. So they cannot be expected. I know. They can't be expected to get done the same time as you guys. Okay. I will admit, it does kind of feel nice being the last person though. Number 3, resource constraints. Resources is one of the biggest issues with academia. Okay. Because don't get me wrong, we're not Harvard. Okay. We do not have an endowment that literally matches most countries. Okay. So a lot of times it's the idea of how can we work with industry to be able to create partnerships, create things that can help us develop the students that you guys need. But a lot of times that involves also then trying to ask for, well, the funding for it. Along with that, the second part is being the champion of it. Let's say, for example, I'm the champion. I work with Zana. We come up with a partnership. but then 3 or 4 years later, I leave. If I leave, does the next person that come in, does that person still have the passion to continue it or not? That's kind of an issue. It's a challenge. Very last one, mismatch of expectations. Sometimes, industry looks at my students and goes, they look like they're adults. They look like they've been in the industry for a long time. They look like that they might be potentially 26 years old. And then all of a sudden you kind of point to them and go like, 22. Okay. There's a mismatch, right? There's an issue with the fact that they basically have, and so it's just trying to get clear lines of communication. Okay. Clear lines of communication. With that being said, can you go to my very last slide while I wrap this up literally, because I was just told I had to probably about 2 minutes ago. My bad. Okay. One of the things that I've been trying to explain to my students is this idea of networking. So if you would like to find an opportunity to collaborate with me, I would be more than happy to. This is all my information up there. Okay. You have my phone number, you have what you call it. I don't care which way you want to network. Okay. Because to me, networking is networking. One of the biggest things and by the way, Ms. Zahn, just so you know, you're probably going to end up in after I ask you for permission, of course, you're probably going to end up in my freshman student success program as another way of showing how networking works. Okay. Because the thing is that a lot of students don't quite understand the importance of networking. Okay. They think that somehow they're basically going to finish, they're going to get the piece of paper, they're going to smile and go, world, hire me. And the world just kind of goes, okay. And that's it. I thank you so much for your time and for your listening to me. And again, thank you, Ms. Anna and Ms. Joy, for inviting me here. Appreciate it.
Very insightful. Thank you, Sir Steve Spencer. Shaping
Really nice.
the future, starting in the academy, transforms businesses. How wonderful. And that also reminded me of my first year working, because actually I studied psychology, and they also teach organizational development as well, and we talk a lot of frameworks, theories, but nobody really tells you what to expect when you start working. And on my first day, I was tasked to do payroll. Can you imagine? And so, yes, it's a really good insight to, and also a reminder for us to look back and actually focus also in the academy, because they are the future. And again, with our theme, Elevate, Embedding Customer Experience, our focus is people, right? Okay, so now to transition to the plenary debrief. Again, everybody, please, it's not too late to submit your questions, so kindly scan the QR codes, and our second half speakers will answer your questions shortly. Now, for the second plenary debrief, again, this allows us to master it and reflect on the key takeaways from the insightful, speakers earlier. So, for the facilitator for this session is a man of few words. Although he's mostly quiet, his presence speaks volumes. He's calm, steady, always thoughtful. When he does speak, it's with purpose and insight that guides conversations forward with clarity. He is a visionary leader with 15 years in accounting and finance with Ernst& Young and the IT BPM industry. He is the Chief Operating Officer and the co-founder of BSA Solutions Incorporated. He's no other than Mr. Higino Chua Jr. or Chino Chua.
Sir Michael, Sabi and Steve, can you join us here in front? So the other side. I just know that
Right. Okay. Thank you, Michael, Abigail, and Steve, for sharing your experience, expertise, and knowledge with all of us here. And it's really great to hear your topics because you come from very diverse background. One is Sir Michael comes from the construction industry. So when you talk about customer experience, you don't really think about the construction industry right away, right? It's a very niche industry. And with Miss Abigail, one thing that's really not really mentioned quite a lot when you talk about customer experience is the employee experience. It's usually not aligned. It's usually the company who strategizes the sales, but you don't. A lot of companies don't really align their employees to actually have that mindset as well. And of course, to Steve, thank you for sharing with us on how the academy can actually contribute to customer experience because here in the Philippines students are not really taught how to be entrepreneurial. We are taught how to memorize from textbooks, just to be an employee. We're not really taught on how to become an entrepreneur. And customer experience is something that we don't really learn from school. So thank you for that. And of course, my job here as your panelist is to relay the questions that you have for our speakers. So I would like to thank our audience as well, and also for our viewers online who have contributed their questions. So thank you so much. So I do have four questions here. So let me start with uh, Sir Michael. So I think this question is directed to you, but of course, Miss Abigail and Steve, feel free to answer the question as well. So the first question is an anonymous question. How has customer success evolved in project management in the construction industry over the years?
It involved the hard way. Firstly, through experience, without putting in the customers in mind, we experience a lot of rejections and even conflict during the construction phase. And finally, during the turnover, we have a hard time uh, handing over the project because the customer is not happy. That's why along the way, we find way how to make things successful at at the post handover period. We have to make sure that from the start, during design phase, we really sit down with the customer and explain to them in detail what are they expecting and and also we would like to hear from them what they're expecting from us, especially the design. And then before we start with the project, we again sit down with them and make sure that they understood the technicalities by explaining at their level what are the things to be done during construction. So we have to be transparent so they will be trusting us during the construction phase. And we do some walkthroughs and we also involve them in doing some approvals along the way. And finally, after the project is completed, the customer is already satisfied because they're involved during the construction phase. So that's it. We learned that way, and this time in our projects, we made sure that the customer is really active from phase one, from the early phase up to the last phase.
Um, well, in my experience in the construction industry, one of the things that really frustrates the project management team are one is how do we deal with customers changing their minds? Because when they start a project, they don't really know what they want and they keep on changing like the designs and that involves cost overruns. How do you manage the customer?
Yeah, we have already a technique for that one. Before going to the next phase, we do some models. If we need to do a mock-up because the customer is not really that kind of sharp, we do a mock-up. Do you find this okay? Do you like the color? Do you like the placement of the switches, the lightings, and everything? And then if they say yes, then we proceed. Also, we also do some um, material sampling. We have to explain to them the pros and cons of the materials and even educate them with cost benefit in mind. because sometimes they don't care about the cost, but once the project's done, they're surprised. Why did we reach this amount? So we have to, from every phase of the project, we have to explain to them the cost, benefit, and the value before they make a decision.
Thank you. So, Miss Abigail and Steve, do you have anything to add to that questions?
I think I can relate very much because I'm also into project management, and I've realized that in every phase of project execution, it's critical to give the customer a voice. It's very important that we integrate some agile practices like failing fast, meaning you have to have your minimum viable product out there. You get your customer to give feedback whether they like it or they'd like some enhancement, some refinement, in such a way that yes, we avoid rework and waste of effort. And of course, we'd like to preserve our relationship with the client as well.
I think I'm good on that one.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. And this is directed to Miss Abigail. From Curious Guy, in a fully remote environment, what are the most effective strategies for maintaining and reinforcing a cohesive, customer-centric culture when employees rarely interact in person?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Curious guy. The practices that I shared earlier actually come from the pandemic period. During the pandemic, we couldn't really work on site or with the clients because, of course, there were restrictions. Of course, there's the you can't really travel much, right? And one of the things that we've realized is that you are only as strong as your leadership pipeline is. Leaders played a big role in making sure that people were reminded of the norms, the expectations, the regular cadence meetings every week was truly important. The transparency when it comes to dashboards, in terms of client feedback, in terms of how we were in our projects was also very very critical. Communication was very important. We've utilized various channels. In fact, you are being required now to utilize omni channel. Omni is in emails, virtual meetings, chat groups, etc., etc., just to get the message across. Check-ins with employees was also critical. Making sure that there were occasions and events wherein people would be updated about company events, having values enculturation programs, not just for leaders, but also for team members and employees. And the example that I shared earlier about norm setting, wherein people really have to sit down and leaders have to be transparent about their expectations and standards for the team. And then team members are also given the opportunity to share about how they would like to be led. What level of supervision do they need? So with that level of interaction, even in remote settings, it's very, very easy to make sure that everybody supports the customer orientation, the customer standards, and the service level agreements.
Thank you, Miss Abigail. Steve, sir, yeah.
When I think about that, I think I go back to the pandemic as well. But the thing that I kind of think of is in regards to kind of piggyback on what was just said is that planning was very, very important for us. Eventually it showed how, especially when the pandemic first started, how underprepared we were. But then over time, the planning was very important. So things like going back to modules and the things that you had to kind of do for education, that when you started actually planning things out better, it made, because again, my customers were students. It made their learning journey a lot better. And then also the other side of customers, which I didn't mention earlier, are the parents. They in turn could then see the differences, especially after people finally got their kind of their bearings a little bit. I think the other one also is feedback. Um, you're especially when the pandemic happened, there's just a lot of people just didn't quite know how to work within this new idea of how we're going to do things. People that maybe were maybe, like, let's say for example, like in the PPO industry, maybe for those, then they were kind of like, whatever. It's like it's same old, right? But for a lot of industries, I think they really had to put together these very different policies, procedures, different ways of handling it, but also different ways of getting feedback that in many cases you needed it to be constructive because you also needed to keep everyone in the same boat. If all of a sudden you started becoming too critical or something like that, you needed to find ways to be able to explain why it wasn't working, but then how can we actually get it to work better, and then try to back those up with positive reinforcement and things of that nature. And so I think that if you do those things along with everything that was already previously said, I think it's very, very possible that you can actually still give quite good customer service, even if you're remote. But it does take time. It does put a lot of things in place. And it's probably, especially going back to the pandemic, you may also trip over a lot of stuff at first. And you have to be okay with that and just realize it's a learning process. And as long as you're okay with that, you'll be fine.
So Michael, very good. Go ahead. Sure, sure.
In our case, we're in the construction industry. It needs to be a physical thing. But during pandemic, it's so surprising because during pandemic, everything is remote, right? We did a lot of design. There are a lot of design projects during the pandemic. So we have the designers have time to discuss and prepare the clients for their upcoming projects in case the pandemic is over. So during the pandemic period, in my case, I have three projects that being designed during pandemic. Then after the pandemic, everything goes online, alive. Yeah.
Thank you. And maybe one more question from the audience. Still from Curious Guy, and this is addressing Mr. Steve Spencer. Um, how is the integration of technology like AI or personalized digital platforms currently impacting the student journey? And where do you see the most significant CX opportunities in the next 5 years?
One of the most difficult parts when it comes to AI and a lot of these things is, and especially in going back to my particular school in particular, is it's the resources. It's being able to get resources where you really can actually get those implemented. I think that I think it's where at times when I look at the idea of the CX part, I think if there's ways to look at, say for instance, companies that are actually working with AI to try to solve those needs, and we could try to basically align them to work with the students. The students could then be able to see it with not necessarily having to have all the ways and stuff like that, but they can see it at work. They can see it and at least have an understanding of it, so that it in turn can be very useful to them. I think in regards to the next 5 years, the biggest issue is going to be is, and I think this was touched on in the very beginning, is that people are not necessarily going to go away. I know we all think about the fact that AI is going to take over everything, because there is definitely that personal perspective, and the fact that people still want to be able to communicate and talk to somebody and so on and so forth. And so I think that if we can get students to work on more of the soft skills and the things of that nature, and to get better at doing that, get better to actually, understand a person's needs, their pain points, and being able to actually adapt to that, the students will still have careers going down the road. It's if they are working but and then by the way, also if they actually learn how to use AI well, I mean things of prompt engineering and so on and so forth, to be able to actually, I mean there's still so many different ways but it is probably going to fundamentally change the way that we're looking at trying to prepare students. But this is also why I think academia needs to ask those tough questions about themselves is, are we actually taking what the industry is really needs and are we trying to implement it into the curriculums versus just thinking that we know what's best? I think as long as we do that, then we can actually work well and we can provide the students that you guys need that hopefully will be able to go forward either here or also abroad as OFWs.
Sure. So I'm really sorry, but we are actually running out of time. So maybe just to wrap this up, if I could ask you to give us one key takeaway message from your talk earlier, that would be great. So we maybe start with you, Sir Michael. One last key takeaway message.
Yeah, my takeaway is that in construction, we define project success nowadays in a different way. Before, gone are the days of the traditional definition of project success. This time, it's more on the customer centric.
My key takeaway from my talk earlier is that we're talking about innovation, technology, AI. Yes, we're going high tech, but along with becoming more high tech, I think to embed customer experience, it's very important to be high touch, to be reminded that we should have human centered organizations in order to create memorable customer experiences.
I think my key takeaway would be the fact is that we have a wonderful opportunity for academia and industry to work together, but we have to be able to talk to each other. We have to be able to continue to communicate, and I think if we do that, we can provide and not just even in my university, but we can provide students that not only could help Cebu be able to become just a hub for so many different things, be it in the BPO, obviously, be it in accounting, management accounting, be it in things like animation, so on and so forth. But the thing is, though, is that there has to be this communication. If there's not the communication, then what basically happens is that you start having two groups that basically need things and they don't talk to each other, they don't get the people they need, and then in turn, we just kind of are going to end up having the same conversation in about 5 years from now and wondering why it hasn't been fixed yet.
Right. Okay, so thank you again, Sir Michael, Miss Abigail, and Steve for being with us here, and hopefully we can do this again in the future. So, if you have any more questions for our speakers today, just reach out to Joy, and maybe we can just send them over to our speakers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sir Gino. And I guess that wraps up our plenary debrief, everybody. And I know we're a little bit over time, but I really appreciate you guys for staying and also, staying involved during the plenary debrief and also submitting your questions. Now, as we transition or as we are, are about to close the program, allow me to introduce to you one last speaker. She is one of the most passionate and purpose driven leaders I've encountered. Someone whose dedication truly inspires those around her, including myself. In almost every challenging opportunity I've faced here at BSA, she's always been there, offering support, encouragement, and guidance. And she never fails to remind everyone that each person is capable and is able to rise to the occasion. That's why our recruitment team also calls her Tita Mami. She is a registered physical therapist in the Philippines with over 10 years of combined experience in the field of healthcare and occupational health, healthcare education, and learning and development in NGOs, the academy, and the corporate industry. She is the senior manager of the Center of Excellence at BSA Solutions Incorporated. For closing remarks, please help me welcome Joy Calion.
No, no, no.
Thank you everyone for coming here. I'll make this fast because I know we all want to go to the party. Yes, so when we created the Alexandria Accord 3 years ago, it was never about hosting another business event. It was about preserving knowledge and turning it into shared progress. The inspiration from the name Alexandria Accord came from two things. Alexandria stood for the library that once held the world's greatest collection of learning and a symbol of humanity's search for wisdom. Accord came from the great international agreements, like the Paris and the Washington Accords, where people came together to come together to commit to common goals. And combined, the Alexandria Accord became a philosophy that knowledge is most powerful when it is shared, applied, and passed on. From the start, Accord was founded on the belief that learning is the foundation of transformation. Eventually, it became a space where leaders, educators like Steve, and innovators could pause, reflect, and reimagine the future of work. And over the years, one truth has remained constant. Progress becomes lasting only when learning, empathy, and collaboration sit at the center of growth. And now, on its third year, Alexandria Accord has evolved into a community of people who see education and experience as inseparable. Each year's theme captured a moment in time, reflecting both the challenges and the maturity of organizations and leaders who joined the conversation. The first year, 2023, the name was Transcend, and it came at a time of rebuilding. The world was still recovering from a pandemic, and the companies were searching for stability. The focus was on recovery, scaling, resilience, and reestablishing trust. And from that foundation emerged a new kind of thinking, one that asked how we could move from building or surviving into shaping the future. And on the second year, we called it Innovate, where the focus shifted from recovery to reinvention. Today, Alexandria Accord returns on its third installment, Elevate, embedding customer experience at the heart of business transformation. And this year's theme brings the conversation full circle. After rebuilding and reinventing, the next challenge is to reconnect with purpose, with people, and with the communities we serve. For me, leading this Alexandria Accord has been an ongoing lesson of humility and growth. Coming from a background in education and development, I've always believed that learning is both personal and collective. Each conversation reminds me that progress happens when we allow ideas to meet, challenge, and inspire one another. The Alexandria Accord began with a dream of keeping the knowledge alive, and today it continues that mission by bringing people together to learn, share, and lead with integrity. The same way BSA's 5 years, because yes, we are celebrating our 5 years this month, it represents the culture of continuous improvement and a belief that excellence must always serve people. To elevate is to rise with purpose, and purpose is what sustains progress. That is the heart of both the Alexandria Accord and BSA's journey. When we choose to learn together, we build something that lasts, not only for this organization or for other organizations, but for the generations that will follow. Thank you so much. Back to you, our beautiful host.
Thank you, Miss Joy. Excellence must always serve the people. How wonderful. Okay, now to before we formally close everybody, I would like to call on Zana and Sir Chino to
Award.
Wow, the certificate of appreciation to our amazing speakers for today. And for the first certificate is in recognition for sharing his expertise and perspective as guest speaker during the third BSA Alexandria Accord, Elevate, embedding customer
Ito siguro mo
experience
sa
at the
tubang.
core of business transformation.
Tubang.
Held on October
There's an
24,
in the front of the
2025 at the Royal Hall, Citipark
si Brian.
Hotel, Cebu City. Signed by Zanagawa Taylor, our CEO, and COO or co-founder, Chino Chua. May I call on Mark Brian Micabalo? Thank you, Mr. Brian. And up next, we also like to give the certificate of appreciation to D. Mills. And next speaker, also like to thank Richard Regalado. Giant.
I'm going right now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Richard Regalado. And we'd also like to thank our fourth speaker, Mike Manlami. Thank you very much for your time as well, Sir Mike. And for our fifth speaker, we'd also like to thank Abigail Tongtong. You very much, Miss Abigail. And last but not the least, we'd also like to thank Steve Spencer. And I'd also like to call on all speakers to come on stage for a group photo.
Where the heck are we going?
That's a thing. I know, but let's stop it up. You want us to have this?
Yes, yes.
Say this. But there's yeah. No, my God. So it is, yes. It's probably not even Spencer on stage. Finance.
Once again, please give a warm round of applause to our speakers for today. Okay. I see you. What an inspiring and insightful day it has been. We began this morning with one simple yet powerful idea: elevate, embedding customer experience at the core of business transformation. And throughout this conference, our incredible lineup of speakers from diverse industries and backgrounds have shown us exactly what that means in action. So, as we close, I invite all to take what you've heard today and reflect. How can we elevate the way we lead, the way we serve, and the way we connect? Because at the heart of every successful transformation is not just innovation or strategy, it's the commitment to keep the people at the core. In a country like the Philippines, where our greatest resource has always been our people, strengthening human capital means strengthening our future. When we invest in skills, education, and meaningful opportunities, we empower Filipinos to serve, to lead, and to elevate communities across industries and generations. Yes or yes? On behalf of the organizing team, thank you to all our speakers for sharing your expertise, to our participants for your energy and engagement, and to everyone who made this event possible. It's been a wonderful day learning and sharing ideas with you. And lastly, it's been an honor to be your host at BSA Solutions' third Alexandria Accord Conference. May we keep elevating, pushing boundaries, driving change, and putting our customers at the heart of it all. Padayon ta, kay ang kalampusan pagsugod sa katawhan. See you all next year.
We're not only gathering for a conference, we're marking 5 years of innovation, connection, and transformation. This is where ideas turn into action, where leaders redefine what it means to elevate. Get ready for back-to-back celebrations, from powerful conversations that shape industries to moments that remind us why we do what we do. This isn't just another event. It's the milestone you don't want to miss. Are you ready to elevate? We're not only gathering for a conference, we're marking 5 years of innovation, connection, and transformation. This is where ideas turn into action, where leaders redefine what it means to elevate. Get ready for back-to-back celebrations, from powerful conversations that shape industries to moments that remind us why we do what we do. This isn't just another event. It's the milestone you don't want to miss. Are you ready to elevate?